There will always be secrecy surrounding the production of movies, books and TV shows to ensure that nothing is leaked before its release. A fake line was used to hide from cast and crew that Vader was Luke's father, the printing of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows was carried out under low light to stop employees reading any of the pages, and Tom Holland was given a fake script for Avengers Infinity War to stop him from leaking anything. But what happens when there is so much secrecy around the ending of a story that it isn't even published? Here's the story of the Twilight director that had an incomplete young adult book published for their film. There has always been movies based on books, and there can be books based on movies, and sometimes there can be books based on movies that are based on books. Having multiple forms of a story allows aspects of it to be fleshed out and expanded upon in different mediums, or if you're cynical, to maximise profit. In 2011, book-to-movie adaptations of teen novels were beginning to gain traction in Hollywood. With both the Harry Potter and Twilight movies soon to be wrapped up after having made millions, a Hunger Games movie in early development, and a Percy Jackson film having been released the year prior, the market for YA film adaptations was about to enter its prime. These adaptations spawned millions of fans across the globe, one love triangle at a time, and a formula was beginning to emerge for these type of novels, one which the genre would hold on to for several years. And in 2011, a new book would experiment with this emerging formula and was unknowingly about to establish its very boundaries. On the 12th of January 2011, Red Riding Hood, a teen novel by Sarah Blakley-Cartwright and David Leslie Johnson, was released. The book was a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood and was Cartwright's first and seemingly last teen novel. However, this particular retelling of Little Red Riding Hood was not Sarah Blakley-Cartwright's own creation. Cartwright had become involved with Red Riding Hood after she was approached by the director of the movie Twilight, Catherine Hardwicke. In 2009, Catherine Hardwicke had received a manuscript written by David Leslie Johnson titled The Girl with the Red Riding Hood, which was based upon an idea from Leonardo DiCaprio. Yes, that is the Leonardo DiCaprio. The manuscript then began to be turned into a movie titled Red Riding Hood. Actors were cast, sets were beginning to be built, and pre-production was well underway. DiCaprio was heavily involved with the movie as his production company, Appian Way, produced the film, and Leo himself is one of the movie's producers. As pre-production for the movie continued, Hardwicke began to realise that the characters and their backstories were too complex to fit into the film itself. So Hardwicke approached her friend, Sarah Blakley-Cartwright, and asked her to write a novel for the Red Riding Hood movie. The pair had known each other since Sarah was 13, and Sarah has appeared in some of Hardwicke's movies. Cartwright agreed to write the novel. She visited the sets of the movies and even interviewed the cast members about their characters to help her write the book. This is all explained in a foreword at the start of the novel, written by Catherine Hardwicke, the director. The movie itself actually had some pretty big names cast in the roles. With Amanda Seyfried, Gary Oldman and Julie Christie, it was clear that no expense had been spared and that a lot was put into trying to make this the next big thing. The movie was set to be released on the 7th of March 2011, 2 months after the novel, which would be released in the January. But this would later turn out to be a mistake. After its release in January, the book Red Riding Hood was a commercial success and went on to top the New York Times bestseller list on the 13th of February 2011. The book remained within the top 10 on the list for 19 consecutive weeks. Despite its good sales, the book began to receive heavy criticism from readers and people began to complain. The entire story hinges on the single question, who is the big bad wolf? In short, the story follows Valerie, who lives in a village that is terrorised by a wolf, and no one knows who it is. Throughout the story, several characters are painted as potential werewolf suspects, the most obvious one being Valerie's grandmother, because of the original fairy tale, as well as the main characters who are in the love triangle with Valerie. Even Catherine Hardwicke describes herself as having been hooked after reading the script, as she attempted to figure out which character was the wolf. The whodunit type aspect is the story's foundation and is its hook, and this was where problems for the book started to occur. As people began to finish their read-throughs of the novel, many of those who had purchased it were upset specifically at the story's conclusion, and that was because there wasn't one. The novel's final chapter ends with the protagonist announcing that she believes her grandma is in danger and begins to make her way through the woods to save her. Along the way, she meets one of her lovers who she suspects to be the werewolf, but she then decides that she does not care whether or not her lover is the werewolf that's murdered several people throughout the novel, including the protagonist's own sister, and kisses him. And that's where it ends. The reader does not know whether or not the grandma was actually in danger or who the wolf even was. But when the reader turns the page, they are met with the following message. Is this truly the end of Valerie's story? Visit www.redridinghoodbook to find out. When you visited the website, a message read, "Still believe in happy endings?" and readers were told to come back for a bonus chapter on the 14th of March 2011. 7 days after the movie's release. The book began receiving floods of negative reviews and many readers felt they had been scammed. They'd paid for a novel and had only received 2/3 of it, the beginning and the middle. After the movie was released in March, people waited and then eventually, on the 14th, were able to access the bonus chapter they had been promised. So what would this bonus chapter be like? Would it be an epilogue set 10 years after the events of the novel as the protagonist looks back at prior events? Would it be a changing point of view, seeing events through the wolf's eyes, helping to tie up some of the questions the readers had? Or would it just carry on exactly where the book left off without any shift in time, point of view, or anything at all, with no indication of why the book was cut off at that point? Yeah, it's that last one. There was no change in anything between the actual novel and the bonus chapter. In the bonus chapter, she then goes on to stab the man who she decided at the end of the novel she loved, and then continues to walk to her grandmother's house to discover the identity of the wolf. As fans began to read the bonus chapter, it became apparent that there was nothing bonus about it. The word bonus suggests extra, an add-on, but the chapter that was posted was an integral part of the story. The additional chapter revealed the identity of the wolf, and spoiler alert, it's the protagonist's own father. This revelation was something that many people would not have seen coming if they only hadn't watched the movie beforehand. After its release online, the bonus chapter had a separate Goodreads page where surprisingly it was well received. Some reviews say that they didn't see the ending coming, while others were confused as to why it wasn't in the book originally, as the chapter at least wrapped up the story, though still just as choppily as the book's format. So with the book pretty much dead in the water, at least critically, there was still some hope with the actual movie, right? Right? The movie itself wasn't well received, and critics completely panned it, with it receiving only 10% on Rotten Tomatoes. Although Seyfried's performance receives some praise, this is about the extent of the movie's positives, according to the reviewers. The movie, with a similar audience and the same director, has some noticeable similarities with Twilight. Shots of foresty landscape accompanied by a dramatic narration from the protagonist, a love triangle with an obvious resolution, both even have Charlie Swan. The movie itself definitely seems like an attempt to recreate the Twilight fever, but fell short with its popularity and ability to drum up a solid fanbase. After having read the book and watched the movie, they are both incredibly similar, with very few differences. The book was essentially a movie novelisation. Movie novelisations are extremely common, and many major and some non-major movies have them. And it isn't even that uncommon to have them released prior to the movie. The first Star Wars movie novelisation was released before the movie was, but the difference being that novel actually had the movie's ending, unlike Red Riding Hood. By having a book release earlier, the movie was able to create the feeling of a movie based on a book, without actually being based on a book. Several copies had a now a major motion picture sticker on the front, which gives the same energy as the whole teen book to movie adaptation that was about to become extremely popular, despite in reality it being a book based on a movie. Several editions of the book were published without any indication of it being a movie novelisation book. This means that it is likely that some people may have just seen this cover and expected it to be a standalone novel, not a movie tie-in with a countdown until you can actually finish reading it. However, after the movie's release, the book did get a new cover with Amanda Seyfried from the movie on it. On this day, the website is no longer available to access, so if you happen to read the book, you won't be able to find the ending on the website. However, if you purchase it on ebook, chapter 30, the bonus chapter, is now included automatically. However, I'm unsure if this is the case with recent printings of the book, if there are any. The movie novelisation wasn't the only book released related to the movie. Red Riding Hood, from script to screen, was released 1 month after the movie and included behind-the-scenes photographs, storyboards, as well as the screenplay written by David Leslie Johnson. Hardwicke had previously released a similar director's behind-the-scenes book shortly after the release of Twilight, and this became a a New York Times bestseller. However, the Red Riding Hood script-to-screen book did not seem to be a very big hit, and apparently there are very few copies available. Also, Amanda Seyfried released a cover of the song Little Red Riding Hood alongside the movie, which is actually quite good, but isn't actually on the movie's soundtrack. But out of all of these add-ons, the movie novelisation seems to hold the most infamy, for the wrong reasons. So why was it decided to sacrifice any chance of the book being well received by removing its ending in order to stop the movie from being spoiled? Because movies tend to earn more than books. In my opinion, the whole plot of Red Riding Hood rests upon the question of who is the big bad wolf, and by revealing the identity of the wolf early in the book, it may have made the movie unattractive to the potential audience, as the whodunit mystery selling point would not have been there. So why didn't they just release the book after the movie? Because then they'd miss out on the whole based on a book market that was popular in movies at the time. Even now, stats show movies that are based on books tend to make more at box office, and without the novel out first, this selling point would not be possible. But the attempt to save the lackluster movie from being spoiled prematurely jeopardised any chance of the novel being well received and cast a shadow on the franchise as a whole. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, consider giving the video a like and subscribe if you would like to see similar videos.